The cell stank of rust, blood, and something acrid that clung to the back of the throat like smoke that never cleared. Lights flickered above her. Blue, sterile, inhuman. Metal walls sweated with condensation, and the floor beneath her boots throbbed faintly, as though the prison itself had a pulse. She stood in the center of the chamber, shackled, bruised, and barefoot, surrounded by creatures whose eyes gleamed with the same hungry malice she'd seen in war zones. Except these weren't men. They were something else. Bioluminescent veins pulsed beneath their armored hides, teeth arranged in unnatural geometries. One of them was licking its claws. The guards had shoved her in without a word. No translation, no explanation. Not that she needed one. The message was obvious. Survive or be entertainment. She didn't know the name of the place. Didn't matter. It was some kind of alien menagerie, a containment level designed for the Empire's most violent prisoners. A pit they threw things into when they wanted to forget about them. She was just the latest addition. The collar around her neck clicked, hissed, and then disengaged. She ripped it off and flung it at the wall. It sparked weakly and slid to the floor. The gesture earned a low, chittering growl from a beast 3 times her size, a mountain of muscle and carapace that flexed in anticipation. Her fingers curled slightly at her sides, loosening. Not in fear, she'd already spent that emotion. What filled her now was older, colder, quieter. The feeling she used to get before ops went black. Before blood sprayed the walls. One of the creatures lunged. She didn't move. She watched. Not the claws. The hips. The left side of its gait. It was fast, but overconfident, used to prey that screamed and fled. She ducked at the last second, letting it overshoot. Then she moved. Her elbow drove into its exposed jaw hinge, and as it staggered, she slammed her heel into the back of its knee joint. It hit the floor with a concussive thud. Before it could rise, she tore a fragment of pipe from the floor grating and rammed it into the soft spot under its eye ridge. The creature twitched once, then went still. Silence followed. The others stared. One of them, tall, serpentine, its body wrapped in faintly flickering bands, let out a hiss that might have been approval. She straightened, chest rising and falling. Her name was Ada, though no one had spoken it in weeks, possibly months. Time had blurred the moment the war ended. If it had ended, she still didn't know. Back on Earth, she'd been part of a covert military program. Not just a soldier, something else. Faster, stronger, meaner. But when the skies cracked open and the Empire arrived, Earth's leaders had collapsed like damp paper. The project was buried in classified ruins. She'd kept fighting long after the surrender. Guerrilla style, vengeful, until the day they caught her. Not the military, the collectors. She didn't remember the ship, only the cell. Then the drop. Then this. The door behind her sealed with a hiss. Watching. Always watching. Ada turned her head slightly. The others hadn't moved. A few had backed away. Predators knew when a new apex arrived. In the upper levels, far above the pit, alien observers conversed in a tongue she couldn't hear but instinctively loathed. She could feel their eyes behind the black glass, feel the hum of surveillance drones moving along tracks overhead. Someone somewhere was taking notes. A siren wailed. A panel in the far wall slid open. The air changed. The scent of ozone thickened. They were bringing something new. She glanced at the dead monster at her feet, then back to the opening. Her jaw clenched. This wasn't over. It was only the introduction. The new arrival crawled out of the corridor on multiple limbs. Bulbous, crab-like, with too many eyes and a throat that pulsed with acid vapor. It scanned the room, sniffed the blood, then fixed on her. So did the rest. They knew the rules. A fresh kill meant a fresh challenger. The next hour was a blur of violence. Not fluid, not cinematic. It was ugly, physical, exhausting. She lost hearing in her left ear when one of them screamed directly into her skull. Her shoulder dislocated. She bit a chunk out of something's neck. When it was over, she was the only one still standing. And the others were watching her differently now. Not just as another thing to eat, but as something worse than them. A pair of towering bipeds, armored guards this time, entered and dragged two of the corpses out but left the rest. A warning, maybe, or proof. She staggered back to the wall, breathing hard. Her knuckles were raw. One of her ribs felt cracked. But her eyes were steady, focused. In the corner, a skeletal being with spindly arms and a tangle of metal cables in its chest tilted its head and muttered something in its own language. Sounded like awe. Another figure stepped forward. Smaller. Humanoid, but definitely not human. Its skin shimmered, and it carried no weapons. It crouched in front of her and extended something wrapped in dark cloth. Food. Protein paste. Probably poison. Probably not. Didn't matter. She took it. The alien didn't flinch when her bloody hand brushed its fingers. Above them, watchers murmured. Observing. Recording. Ada chewed slowly, ignoring the taste. Her gaze didn't rise to the cameras. Let them watch. Let them think they'd broken her. She hadn't even started. She didn't remember falling asleep, but when Ada woke, her left eye was crusted shut with dried blood. Something in the air had changed. Quieter. Cleaner. The hum of machinery had faded into a low, ominous silence. Her limbs ached from the last fight, and her knuckles had split open again, caked with grime. She peeled herself from the wall where she'd passed out and took in her surroundings. The corpses were gone. The watchers had left her a message. She flexed her fingers, winced. Still usable. Pain was a good sign. Pain meant she hadn't died. The room was different now. Warmer. Too warm. The kind of heat that made sweat bead between the shoulder blades. The kind that made machines overheat. They were altering conditions. Testing her response. A metallic clang echoed from above. The ceiling split open. Chains dropped from the darkness. And with them, cages, 3 of them. Inside each one twitched something worse than what she'd fought before. One was a beast she recognized from war briefings. Part synthetic, part flesh. Designed by the Empire for siege operations. It shouldn't have fit in the room. They'd modified the ceiling for it. She didn't flinch. Just stood, calculating. They weren't just observing her anymore. They were escalating. Behind her, movement stirred. Not a threat. Presence. The thin alien from before, the one who'd offered food, stood at the edge of the shadows, unarmed. It didn't speak. It merely tilted its head and gestured toward the far wall. A slit opened. A doorway, passageway or trap, didn't matter. She was done waiting. The corridor smelled sterile and hummed faintly underfoot. Lights blinked green as she passed. Surveillance followed. The thin alien trailed silently. After a dozen turns, the walls opened into something larger. A domed chamber lined with viewing panels, thick glass, and flickering alien script. Behind each panel stood silent observers, masked or robed, their faces unreadable. At the center of the room, a platform. And on the platform, her next test. 2 prisoners. Not monsters. Humanoids. One scarred, armored. The other barely more than a child, clutching a makeshift weapon. She was being given a choice. Or rather, they were being given the choice to watch her make it. She approached the platform, heart steady, eyes cold. The guards herded the other 2 forward. The armored one snarled. "Stay back." His voice was rough, deep, familiar in tone if not language. Some part of her understood it anyway. She could read intent like scent. He didn't want to kill. He just didn't want to die. The child said nothing, just stared. Ada raised her hands, palms open. "I'm not your enemy." The armored one didn't believe her. He charged. She stepped sideways, used his momentum to flip him, hard, into the ground. His breath left in a grunt. Before he could rise, she pinned him with a foot on his throat. "I said I'm not your enemy." The child raised their weapon, shaking, terrified. She turned her head just enough for them to see her expression. Not rage, not malice, just focus. "Put it down." They did. She stepped off the armored one and backed away. Behind the glass, the observers shifted. One tapped something on a console. A moment later, the doors slid open again. New area. New level. They were moving her. Not a punishment. Promotion. The chamber she entered next was a training zone. Simulated gravity shifts, variable terrain. She'd seen rooms like it in Earth's elite Black Ops compounds. But this was far beyond. Alien tech that bent light and mass. Time felt off here, slower at the edges, faster near the core. Others were already inside. 6 of them. Mixed species. Not prisoners, test subjects, maybe. Survivors. Like her. They turned when she entered. And she saw it: recognition. Fear. One of them lowered their weapon immediately. Human. One muttered in a language she didn't speak but understood anyway. The one who killed the reef beast. She said nothing. Just kept walking. Someone had told stories. The others spread out, unsure. One, a tall, violet-skinned female with cybernetic limbs, stepped forward. You lead. Ada's brow lifted. I survive. The other nodded. That was enough. The next week was war. Simulated combat. Swarms. Fights against constructs. Environment traps. Time loop rooms. Each designed to crack cohesion. Crush will. But every time Ada endured. She didn't just fight. She adapted. The others began to follow her without asking. She gave orders only when necessary. Efficiency earned loyalty. Clarity earned respect. She learned their names, sort of. Mostly nicknames, gestures, references. One called himself Wreck. Heavy. Slow. In a real fight, he'd be the shield. Another, Vin, the violet one. Lethal with blades. The child from the platform had been reassigned to her group. Small, quiet, too quick for the eye to follow. Ada called them Ghost. After 20 drills, they hadn't lost a member. Others weren't so lucky. Failure meant removal. And no one saw the removed again. It was more than training. It was shaping. They were crafting something. One night, as the artificial lights dimmed and the cells cooled, the thin alien, her silent shadow, appeared again. This time it held something else. A neural node. A data cube. It slid it beneath her door. Ada stared at it, then picked it up. No security. No encryption. Inside were images. Blueprints. Schedules. Lab logs. They were studying her DNA. Comparing it to captured samples from Earth. Project files she'd thought long lost. She wasn't just surviving the pit. She was the project. The cube also showed something else, an upcoming trial. A final one. She memorized everything. The next day, they moved her group to a new chamber. Larger. Circular. A stadium. They'd upgraded the viewing gallery. Full observation deck. Hundreds of watchers. A voice boomed overhead. Translated. Artificial cold. Test of Apex designation. A gate opened, and from it emerged the beast. The reef beast had been one thing. This was something else. Towering. Quadruped. Covered in kinetic reactive armor, blades along its spine, and 2 fused brains controlling both aggression and strategy. Ada's team shifted into position. She said nothing. She just moved. The fight was hell. 3 of her team were down within minutes. Rek took a blow that shattered his ribs. Ghost vanished into smoke and didn't reappear. She climbed the beast like a mountain, drove her blade into the base of its skull while it thrashed, rode it down to the floor. When it finally died, she was soaked in gore, breathing hard, alone on the field. The crowd was silent. Then movement. A door opened behind the viewing glass. An alien stepped through, taller than the others, robed. Authority radiated from its very presence. It regarded her with quiet fascination. Then, to her surprise, it bowed and spoke in flawless English. You were meant to die in the cage. She said nothing. The alien tilted its head. You did not. Still silence. So tell me, human, what are you? Ada stepped forward. Not limping. Not wavering. I'm the reason your monsters sleep with one eye open. The alien smiled, or did the approximation of one. Then it's time we stopped testing you and started learning from you. She didn't reply, but she knew now what came next. They weren't done with her. Not yet. And neither was she with them. Let me know when you're ready for Section 3. The room was dark when Ada stepped into it. silent and dry, unlike every arena, trial chamber, or observation hall she'd endured before. No watchers, no blinking panels, no ambient hum of alien tech. Just her. And the chair. It sat in the center, plain but wrong. Too precise. Geometrically perfect. Designed not for comfort but compliance. She didn't sit. A voice rippled through the walls, low and vast, as if the room itself had breath. You've exceeded your classification. That makes you both valuable and dangerous. Ada stayed silent. She no longer played into their narratives. The voice continued, closer now. Your physiology, your cognition, your choices under pressure. We have not seen such variance in projection versus outcome. Even among your species. She stepped forward. Slow, controlled. And yet, the voice said, softer now, you still hold to something primitive. Morality, loyalty, sacrifice, inefficiencies. Lights flickered on in vertical strips. The room expanded outward, revealing a wall lined with tanks. Inside floated others, humans or close to them. Copies, test iterations, each one slightly different. Genetic splicing, neural rewiring. One had her eyes, another her scars. They weren't clones. They were drafts. How many times have you tried to build me? She asked. A pause. 71. She circled one tank, watching the body twitch faintly in suspended fluid. Why me? Because you survived when others did not. That's not an answer. Because we made you, Ada Drake. Her blood froze. She turned. Liar. We enhanced you in utero. Gave your mother the anomaly strain during gestation. The wars gave you shape, but we gave you origin. You were never natural. You were curated. She gritted her teeth. Earth never consented. Of course not. Your governments would never have allowed it. But their factions fought each other too much to notice the smallest of interventions. Your kind is so busy drawing borders, you rarely look at the stars. Ada walked to the center. The chair. She stared down at it. You want me to sit. We want you to lead. Images burst across the walls. Fleets, invasions, planetary bombardments. Alien wars she didn't recognize. Worlds shattered under the weight of conflict. The galaxy is fracturing, the voice said. Empires are collapsing. The species that remain seek dominion or extinction. You could be more than an anomaly. You could be design, directed, refined. You want a weapon. We want a sovereign. Ada's fists clenched. I want freedom. The walls changed. Earth appeared. Not as it was, but as it could be, ruined, smoldering, dead skies. We intercepted a fleet bound for your system. Not ours. Not sent by us. But by those who fear what your species may become. They've seen you fight. They believe you're already ours. She stepped closer. When? 17 cycles. Just under 4 Earth days. Ada's chest tightened. That wasn't time. That was a countdown. You want me to stop it. You can't stop it alone. But you can lead. We will give you a ship. A crew. Your people will see you rise from death and call it prophecy. You'll return as salvation. I don't want a throne. You may not have a choice. The tanks hissed. One opened behind her with a rush of cold air. Inside stood Ghost, awake. Alive. Changed. Their skin shimmered faintly with embedded tech. Their eyes glowed a soft white. Not a child anymore. Protocol 0, the voice said. The first to volunteer. Modified using your data. Ghost looked at her. Said nothing. Just gave a slight nod. Then the wall behind them opened into a hangar bay. Ships, weapons, personnel. All waiting. Not ordered. Awaiting instruction. Ada stepped forward. The decision wasn't simple. But it was hers. She turned to Ghost. Then let's show them what monsters really look like. The ship they gave her wasn't the largest. But it was fast, armored in adaptive alloys and embedded with an AI that spoke in pulses, not words. It responded to her intent. Ghost called it Whisper. Fitting. Silent until it struck. Her crew came next, wreck, patched up and more machine than before. Vin, now upgraded with alien reflex dampeners. Others she hadn't saved but who remembered her victories. They didn't ask if she wanted to fight. They knew she would. Their target was a fleet of 13 Dread-class vessels. Enemy unknown. Technology partially Earth-based, but corrupted, reverse-engineered hybrids. Someone had taken human innovation and fused it with things not meant to exist in gravity. As Whisper burned through subspace, Ada studied every scan, every trajectory. Her mind moved faster now, another gift or curse from her captors. But she didn't think of herself that way anymore. She wasn't a prisoner. She was the aftermath. When they reached orbit, the Earth fleet had already begun collapse. Cities darkened. Satellites ruptured. A full-scale planetary siege within hours. Ada launched first. Whisper cut through space like blade through cloth, slipping between enemy formation. Ghost dropped behind her in a silent dive, disabling propulsion systems before the enemy could target lock. The others followed. Precision, ruthlessness, efficiency born of captivity. They weren't a crew. They were vengeance incarnate. By the time the second dreadnought exploded, Earth's remaining forces began to respond, not with confusion but coordination. They saw her emblem, recognized the silhouette, the girl who'd vanished, the soldier they thought dead. Ada Drake had returned, and the world moved. The final ship, the largest, tried to retreat. Ada didn't let it. She boarded it herself, alone. Fought through corridors thick with mutated tech and void-spawned entities. Her body screamed. Her bones cracked. But she didn't fall. Not again. At the core, she found its commander. Human. Scarred. Augmented. A relic of a Black Ops program Earth had buried years ago. He looked at her and laughed. They made you too, didn't they? Ada leveled her blade. No, she said. I made me. And then she ended it. The ship broke apart behind her as she launched back into vacuum. Whisper caught her in its tether. Earth was safe. For now. But peace was no longer the point. She had seen the edge of the galaxy and what crawled just beyond it. They wanted a weapon, a sovereign, a monster. She'd become something worse. A warning. And warnings don't wait to be summoned. They strike first. Let me know if you want a teaser epilogue or continuation thread.